Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome back to our watch club for Star Wars Ahsoka. Perhaps this is where a Ronin such as you belongs. Today, victory is mine. Long live the Empire. Welcome back to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for Star Wars Ahsoka Part 8, the finale, titled The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, directed by Rick Famuyiwa. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we're all left stranded in another galaxy, let me introduce you to the Rebel crew joining me today. First up, as always, he is no Jedi. He's Justin, the Lothcat Lawrence.
Purr, baby. I'm ready to chat.
You've been purring up a storm over there. I've been hearing it. It's funny. They actually put out the name of that Lothcat. His name is Merle, and there's a really wonderful lo-fi video if you want to purr along just like Justin has been. You can check that out on the Star Wars YouTube. But listen, docking down, declaring droid in dank pendants, he's Darcy the Dank and Dead Dathomirian Hudson.
I sure hope not, because when they come back, they don't come back, the same. Also, I gotta say, Nate, your Thrawn is not nearly as imposing, or it doesn't have the same gravitas as Lars.
How am I? There's no possible way to compete with the Lars Mikkelsen, but I try my best. I think I do better impressions than one of our other co-hosts, Kevin, but we'll see what he thinks when he listens to this. But last and certainly not least, I knew I felt a presence like shadows in a starlight. He's the Kyber-finding Kenobi kid, Klein, the foreboding Force Felt. How's it going, Klein?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I feel like a wrestler coming out of the ring. Thank you, guys. I am Ahsoka to be here.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Okay. Listen, it's the first time. It might be the first time you're hearing this, Justin. Klein, you're on another podcast. I've heard that you've maybe used that a few times.
Okay, if that wasn't the first time, that's a bit much.
But it is going to be the last time. I've got to. Yes. That's my thing. You got to get every ounce of juice out of that comedic orange you possibly can, because we're gonna have to put it away. We don't know if a season 2 is coming. Deadline's all it's in conversation or whatever. Come on, I gotta do it.
Squeeze that orange, man. I got you.
Squeeze that orange. Squeeze that orange. That is Ahsoka's orange face. But Klein, this is your first time on the Geekcentric podcast. We, for the most part, we know you, but for those who don't, who are you? I know you have a couple podcasts that you host, as I mentioned. So who are you? What are you all about?
Hello, I'm Klein. I feel like it's the first day kindergarten. I'm my name's Klein. I like mint chocolate chip ice cream, and my favorite color is blue. I'm the senior editor over at thedirect.com. We cover here, there, and everything. Ahsoka, Loki, video games, a whole bunch of fun stuff like that. And as you said, I host a couple podcasts, a Star Wars podcast called Reckless Rebellion. You can find on podcast services around the globe, and a video gaming podcast called Controller Club, where me and two people from opposite ends of the globe, and we podcast once a week. Somehow, some way, time zones line up for 1 hour every 7 days. And that's what we do over there. But so I'm here on this side of the Canadian border, just like you guys, and happy to be here, excited to talk about Ahsoka and everything going on.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. And I mean, you mentioned that you're on a video game podcast. I am super duper jelly right now because I heard that you might be playing a certain thwip type of video game at this moment. Is that true? Can you at least confirm that?
I am in possession of Marvel Spider-Man 2, and I'm playing Marvel Spider-Man 2. That is about all I can say.
Okay,
fantastic.
Sony might take my firstborn.
Don't want to get you in trouble, but I just wanted to confirm that because we are super stoked and really anticipating that as well. But just bringing it back to Star Wars before we keep going, Klein, I want to know, what is your Star Wars origin story?
Ooh, oh man. This is usually the question I ask. I never get to do it myself.
There you go.
Well, I was born at a very young age. It goes back to the days of Blockbuster, everyone's favorite video rental establishment, and walking the aisles every Friday after my local small town basketball league games that I would play in. My dad would take us over to Blockbuster. I can remember it was probably A New Hope first, but then I quickly went into the prequels because I'm like, what are these pictures look so much cooler? But like I remember seeing the covers for the first time in Blockbuster and going like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then I'm going to probably date myself. I'm but a babe. I'm very young. So from there, I was like, okay, I like these things, but I'm not really like fully bought in. And then a little game came out for the Nintendo GameCube called Lego Star Wars, the video game.
Oh.
And I got my hands on this thing, and it was probably just the sheer breadth of all the characters in it. And looking back now, that roster is nothing compared to where Lego games have gone since then.
Gosh, yeah.
But like seeing everyone that's in there and like seeing Kit Fisto and seeing that name for the first time and going like, I don't know what this guy is, but I love what he's about. And like, and Gonk droids and mouse droids and seeing Dexter Jester and like all these names, I fell in love. And then from there it was like, I saw the Clone Wars movie. That was my first first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters. It was all right, I guess. I infamously had the opportunity to see Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and I chose that day to go to Madagascar instead.
Both very hot experiences, I think.
Exactly.
Hot and sweaty.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's ever since then, it's been one of my favorite things. Leading, especially, I think for a lot of people of my age, it's especially leading into Force Awakens. That was it. That was like, I think the pinnacle of just like fandom in general. Mm-hmm. For me, for anything that I've experienced, where it was just like that lead up was so special, and it turned me from a Star Wars like fanatic into somebody who just eats this for breakfast now. And so
Right.
It's from there we've had ups and downs. Some really high highs, some really low lows. But that's all part of being a Star Wars fan.
Absolutely. You get on your shiny colored moped and drive off with your friend.
To tell another
love
story
Scooter
in the
Squad.
middle of another show, like it's all there.
But it's all Star Wars. And Klein, I love that you discovered your love of Star Wars through the GameCube and through the toys, through Lego. That's super awesome. I love that. Let's kind of get into things. Just before we do, though, I do want to quickly pause just to remind everyone listening that we here at Geekcentric support SAG-AFTRA as they strike to get the contract they deserve. We are stoked for the contract that was won by the WGA and the Writers Guild, and they were able to get what they deserve. So we're also in support of SAG-AFTRA and hope that they also can figure it out, because without incredible actors, we wouldn't get all the wonderful stories like these ones from a galaxy far, far away that we love so much. So if you want to support the actors of the things we love, you can do so by checking out the links in our description. But let's get into Part 8, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. We start this finale atop the fortress, still lovingly embraced by the Chimera. Morgan informs Thrawn that the cargo transfer is now complete, and Thrawn commands Enoch to bring the Eye of Sion out of high orbit so they can begin the interlocking procedure. He also tells Enoch to dispatch 2 TIE fighters to engage Ahsoka's ship. Morgan tells Thrawn there is little the Jedi can do now to stop them, and Thrawn tells her not to underestimate the rebellion, and that even he has fell victim to the heroics of a single Jedi. He says, never again. The Great Mothers then express their gratitude to Morgan by having her pledge herself to becoming a fully fledged Night Sister. With the ceremony complete, Morgan's eyes are black. She's got those sick tattoos, and she accepts the gift of shadows, the blade of Talzin. She lifts the sword as it ignites in green flames. She bows to her fellow sisters. Thrawn looks on as the 2 TIE fighters take off, framing him in between them. So let's talk about Morgan finally going from a Charmander to a Charizard, if you will. Klein, what did you think of this ceremony and the Blade of Talzin being gifted to Morgan?
Well, I haven't been the biggest fan of Morgan, to be completely honest. I think that
Same.
she's been done a bit of a disservice. I've said this a few times in various times throughout the season on various different places. I think she's been done a bit of a disservice as a villain, just being surrounded by so many good, like, better villains.
True.
In Thrawn and Balin and Shin. This ceremony is cool. I have to admit, I was like, she's going to get murked. Like, this is it. Like, she is about to die. She didn't. There's nothing cooler than samurai swords on fire. Like, that's just the coolest thing ever. So seeing that was neat. I have watched all the Clone Wars. I'm not like, I don't have the encyclopedic knowledge that some of my cohorts do on Clone Wars. So I didn't immediately pop going, oh my gosh, it's Mother Talzin and all that. I now have like read up and gone, oh, okay, I understand why this is special. I think it was neat. I think that, as I said, there's nothing cooler than samurai swords being on fire, and we got that here, so I am happy.
Yeah, no, I love when the Great Mothers call Morgan forward, and like you can kind of see in her face, she's kind of like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's happening! Like, be cool, be cool, like be cool, be chill. But I thought it was a really cool way for them to kind of give her character sort of the oomph that she needed in sort of this last section. And the fact that it's the same creed, that we saw with Mother Talzin and Asajj Ventress in the Clone Wars. And just like, I think that for me, that what really stood out with this sequence was just the sound design, the moaning of the sisters, and like at one point I hear like almost like a didgeridoo sound going off a few times. I think Kiner kind of worked the score so damn good here, and I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that we're in October. And there's also a lot of like spooky moments in this episode, but like, give me Star Wars Halloween. Like, I want like Werewolf by Night Wolf or something. You know what I mean? Loth Wolf by Night Sister, I think is what I meant to say. That joke tanked. Justin, what about yourself?
That joke did not execute well. I'm with you, Klein. I think that Morgan's been surrounded by such great villains that it kind of has knocked her down a few pegs and has taken a bit of the wind out of her, even from her first introduction in Mandalorian Season 2 when we saw her face Ahsoka for the first time. Here, it was great to see a sense of pageantry and her kind of get this sort of induction into the Night Sister family, into, as Nate say, kind of fangirl for a little moment. Watching it a second time, there's such a huge focus about giving her these powers, the Gift of Shadows and the Blade of Talzin, only to, inevitably where she ends up at the end of this episode. I don't know if this needed to be as big of a sort of moment given where she inevitably lands at the end of the episode.
Yeah, to me, it just seems like this was all part of Thrawn's plan. Like, it wasn't the Night Sisters or the Great Mothers who decided to bestow this upon her. It's like, do this because we're going to need some extra muscle to hold these Jedi back.
Sure.
Because, again, he's not taking any chances now, and that's why he's there, and just he's there every step of the way. They're never doing something on their own. He's always the one kind of in the shadows or right in the open there being like, do this, please, because we'll need it later on. So I feel like she's been upon this whole season, and I feel like that was her role. So she served it well. It's just, it's disappointing that she was so cool when we last saw her in Mandalorian, and this is what she's been reduced to over the course of the season.
I almost would have preferred, just like jumping off you there, Justin, if she had been murdered by the Great Mothers here. Like, if that was what, if they needed to like drain her life force or something like that, that would have given her, to me, a little more use in this episode rather than just being something for Ahsoka to mow through later.
Yeah.
We have other characters in this series that don't get play at all in this finale until the absolute very end that I think would have been much better placed as kind of a final confrontation at the very end rather than having Morgan there. I think that her character would have been almost served better had she died here. It would have been more tragic, because then us looking going, she did all this work. She bought in. She was like, I'm doing this for Thrawn. We need to get him back. We need to get him back. And then for him to ultimately just kind of throw her to the wayside, even more so, like just by like completely offing her right there and then, I think it would have been a more effective story choice had that happened than where we ultimately go, where we get to at the end of this episode. I don't know. I feel like she was a miss.
Yes.
In a series where that hit a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, like, we're going to get to some stuff that I think was probably, for me, the best that I've ever had with her character, and like where I think she shines. But I do want to just shout out the moment with Thrawn talking to her, and just like when he mentions the assumptions made by previous Imperial officers, probably referring to Price from the Rebels series, and killed Kanan and what have you, but also his own failings with Ezra. I think it's cool to see how focused this guy is on like every little detail, no matter how seemingly small. And I think that's what makes him such a threat, right? Compared to what we see in Andor with him, a fledgling rebellion is able to take down the Empire because they are maybe a little too fat and a little too comfortable, and they're not paying attention to all these things. Whereas Thrawn is just... He's just so calculated and just thinking about all these small little details that even Morgan herself is kind of just like, yeah, they can't stop us now. And he's like, nah, I wouldn't be so sure. And one last thing I wanted to just shout out was a couple moments of the cinematography in this section as well. I think the shot opening up with the Chimera over top of the fortress, I think still looks awesome. I know, Klein, you've mentioned on your podcast that you think it's a little too sexual in nature, but I kind of like it.
It looks really uncomfortable. I don't know. It looks like they're giving this thing a lobotomy. I'm not a huge fan.
I mean, I dig it. I don't know what that says about me, but I also wanted to mention the shot of Thrawn with the TIE fighters flying by him. Like, if that is not like a Mondo poster or something like that, like in the future, like I can't wait to see him as the Thanos of Star Wars. And I think that's just like, that moment for me was like, let's get it. Let's go.
I think it's also that moment that kind of Darcy was touching on, it's all part of the plan. The TIE fighters taking off, that's part of the plan. Watching Morgan get inducted and getting these powers, to the point that you're making, Darcy, it was all part of the plan from the get-go. It's almost as if he brought her in to the circle and was like, Night Sisters, did you want to say something here at this point? Like, yeah, exactly. Remember what we talked about?
Late?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it all just adds to this moment for Thrawn, that one shot of just everything's going according to plan.
And Dave Filoni, if you're listening to this and you heard my horrible joke earlier, what I meant is that we should get a Halloween special for Star Wars. Please make it happen. I would just be amazing.
I was kind of hoping you were going to try and say the title again.
Dude, I was thinking, okay, Lothwolf by Night Sister was the joke. Anyways, now that we've beat that like a dead tauntaun. Back on Ahsoka's ship, Ezra argues with Huyang while he constructs a new lightsaber. Huyang asks who taught Ezra to build a lightsaber, and Sabine chimes in with Kanan Jarrus. Huyang tells Ezra that he taught Kanan when he was a youngling back at the Jedi Temple. He hands Ezra the same emitter piece that Kanan had on his saber. As Ezra ignites his saber, Huyang praises him, but when Ezra turns to talk to Sabine, she's gone. Ezra asks Huyang for more information on what happened between Sabine and Ahsoka, and Huyang informs him that Ahsoka feared that Sabine was training for the wrong reasons after the fall of Mandalore and the death of her family, and that she would become dangerous. So we finally got confirmation on something that I think we were all speculating about when we first learned of their fallout with one another. Justin, what did you think of this reveal? And then as a group, let's talk about that new lightsaber. Or old lightsaber?
Well, I guess it's new, old, whatever, but I just love as he's building it, he calls out the blade would be too thin, because I think that was like the biggest complaint for people with Rebels.
Yes.
Like, the lightsabers were
the lightsabers are too thin.
But they were so, like, who was the original artist that designed McQuarrie, right? McQuarrie's designs.
Ralph McQuarrie, yeah,
Ralph
very
McQuarrie's
well. Ralph
designs.
McQuarrie, yes.
That whole all Rebels is just influenced by his designs, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
what
Zeb's
didn't make it. Yeah, exactly.
Chewbacca, right? Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
I love those little moments, and I love that how he just sort of clicks in for Ezra. He's suddenly remembering as he kind of builds this lightsaber, and I love how that's his sort of chaotic, artsy style of how he's building his lightsaber kind of clashes with Huyang's like sort of organized, meticulous method, right? And he kind of calls it out. You have a method versus him, where it's very structured and it has a process to it.
Ezra would get kicked out of the lightsaber building on Batuu. I guarantee.
Maybe, probably.
Yeah,
he'd be jumping over to someone else's thing and being like,
"Oh,
I want this hilt and I want that." Like, yeah, probably for sure.
Yeah.
But I really do like that we get this sense of this confirmation about the past and the history, which, to your point, we were all sort of, circling around through different discussions and through these watch clubs about what happened. And it just makes a lot of sense. It also makes a lot of sense now too, why Ahsoka went through the lessons that she did in the World Between Worlds with Anakin. Really, for her to understand Sabine, she had to understand Anakin and what Anakin's decision was and understand it from that perspective. I think that in a lot of ways, this just gives that affirmation as to why Ahsoka really needed this lesson from the World Between Worlds, and also to have that. It's this sense of forgiveness that kind of runs parallel from the past and into the present, and this idea of not wanting to repeat past and future things. Very much as you were talking about Thrawn, he's meticulously analyzing the past so he doesn't make the same mistakes in the future. And I think that's very much the same thing that Ahsoka is going through this series, is understanding the past and the present. But she comes to a great realization through this, and I think it's really special. So I love that we get this sort of confirmation of that. We also get the idea that that Sabine's family is lost to the events of what happened on Mandalore, which is unfortunate, and because Ezra knew them.
Well, and I love talking about the idea of the thematics of master and apprentice and the past repeating itself, and the fact that Huyang, which again, shout out to freaking David Tennant, just absolutely murdering this role. I love him so much. But him calling Kanan Caleb is because of how he would have known him. And I love the line where he's just like, I'm old enough to know that a relationship between master and apprentice is as challenging as it is meaningful. It's the through line of this series and of this episode. And yeah, it was just so good. So good. And then I also wanted to mention, like kind of Justin, you were touching there, like Ahsoka's fear is what held Sabine back. But I think it's also, there were so many times where we were watching this series and going like, Sabine is being so reckless and her behavior is so like, she's, but I think this iteration of the character, you can sort of understand why now.
Why?
Right?
Mm-hmm,
based on the fact that she lost her real family, and then her found family, she'll do anything possible to get to them. And I think the next conversation that we'll get to is where we can really dig into a little bit more of this and her and Ahsoka's relationship and where it's come to. But was there anything else you wanted to mention before we move on?
I'm just really curious what Ezra was going to say what Ahsoka taught Sabine. Like, what was he about to show her in that small, cramped quarters with the lightsaber? I am so curious about that.
Yeah, did he teach you how to understand Huyang's organization?
Yeah, like what else was he going to show? I'm so confused by that, and they don't even go back to it.
No. Maybe we'll learn one day. But let's keep going here. Sabine exits onto the ship's wing as it hovers along the Noti caravan beneath it. Ahsoka tells Sabine that her gamble paid off, admitting that she knew that Sabine went willingly with their enemies. Sabine apologizes, and Ahsoka says, I know. Sabine asks Ahsoka why she isn't mad, and Ahsoka tells her that Anakin always stood by her, even when no one else did, which is why no matter what happens next, she'll be there for her. Ahsoka asks if she's kept up with her training, and Sabine responds that she's gotten better with her saber. And Ahsoka tells her, hey, listen, it's not all about wielding a lightsaber. There's other things. Train your mind, train your body, and trust in the Force. Just then, as Ezra exits to tell them that he finished constructing his lightsaber, he's also proud, they're attacked by 2 TIE fighters. As Ezra and Ahsoka use the Force to hold the ship up, Sabine blasts the T6 into the TIEs, destroying both of them while crashing the ship into the ground. Sabine walks away and says, got him. And Ezra states the obvious, saying, this is going to slow them down a bit, and Ahsoka responds with, only if we let it. So let's talk about this heart-to-heart discussion between master and apprentice. And Klein, what did you think of Sabine's spur of the moment to, her decision to treat the T6 like we all treated Hot Wheels as a kid?
I mean, it works.
It worked. Yeah.
It is this whole sequence, and I've said it throughout the series at particular moments. This felt the most Rebels sequence of the whole episode, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this to me is like Rebels ultimately comes down to that family and that heart and those smaller moments where it is just 2 people talking back and forth. I really liked the conversation that they have here, and it does feel very much like that relationship is fully mended, and this does feel like a different Ahsoka, and I think that's really evident here. At the beginning of this series, I'm sitting here going, is Rosario, like, I love Ahsoka a lot. Is Rosario, this is a different kind of character, and then you start to kind of, okay, like, she's been through a lot, she's got her guard up, she's being Joel from The Last of Us, but then her icy heart slowly melts, and she begins to understand, like, okay, no, this is where I went wrong, and this is how I can fix that. And you start to get glimpses of that here. And yeah, this maneuver, it's great. It works every time. We've seen it a few different times. Just cut through the thing. It's the Holdo maneuver, just toned down a little bit. Like, sound design was not as great as it was in The Last Jedi, but
yeah.
Hey, we got the
Millennium Falcon sound.
The Millennium Falcon engine. It was perfect. It was perfect.
I couldn't agree more with you though, Klein. Like, I think that this is the conversation that we have been waiting all season for these two characters to have, to mend that relationship with a sense of honesty and sincerity that we know that they're capable of. You know, clearly Sabine is still reckless as she just drives the ship through two TIE fighters. Like, I couldn't believe that she did it. But then I was like, oh, it's Sabine. Like, it kind of makes sense.
She would do it.
Yeah, exactly. Just
to me, it was like it was her testing the promise that Ahsoka just made to her. Like, she gives her that look as she walks by her, like you promised. So
sure, I guess.
stick with me. I don't know.
I got the free ticket to do whatever I want right now, and this is what I'm
Yeah.
going to do.
To me, it was just like that conversation was, Sabine coming to the realization that her master believes in her, and that's all she needs to make that next step forward, so that she can believe in herself and stuff like that. And it was really cool. Again, like you said, Klein, this is the most Rebels feeling moment. I earlier in the season, I was saying how much I hated some of the one-on-one interactions between the characters because it felt so forced and not familial like we're used to in Rebels. But this one, again, brings it right around where we see that mending, and they're on the same page now, and what comes next is just so great. So I love this whole little moment in sequence. So really good.
It really does hammer home the relationship of a master and apprentice, and how an apprentice can be lost without the sort of appreciation or gratification of their master saying what they need to say to them in that moment. You know, I think Sabine has been looking for that for so long, and I know Ahsoka, it seems like Ahsoka's been holding herself back again because of her past, because of her relationship with Anakin, which, you know, now obviously that has mended, that has come sort of a full circle where she can kind of, you know, be at peace with that she can now go to Sabine in this moment, recognize, understand where Sabine is in her journey in relation to where she was, and create a parallel and an alignment that says that I got you. You know what I mean? And I think that that's all that Sabine wanted was Ahsoka to stand in her corner. And I think it was just great. It was such a, as you said, Klein, it was such a sort of familial family moment that just harkens back to the best parts of Rebels.
Well, and I mean, speaking of harkening back, like, shout out to Filoni for just including some of those little dialogue touches of I know, or when Sabine says try and then says she does, just, you know, straight from Master Yoda. I like all these little callbacks because to me, they're those nostalgic kicks that just fit perfectly within the context of that situation, as opposed to other moments that we may have seen in previous Star Wars series where it's like, hey, look, a dewback's there, cool. Like, it's like, why is there a dewback there? What, you know, why did that have to happen? Here, I think it just makes a lot more sense.
And I love that. I think it was Eric Voss who said that I know is essentially Star Wars for I love you in that moment. So it's so, you know, like, again, given the conversation that they're having and the sense of a family, you can kind of see how that's there. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you know, Sabine being a dangerous, reckless Padawan, I think, is very reminiscent of another Padawan that we'll be talking about at some point near the end of this episode. But let's keep it moving here. Enoch informs Thrawn of the outcome of the TIE fighters. And as Thrawn determines his enemy's options, which I love that it always looks like he's like, if I could play a board game, Darcy, with Thrawn, I know I would lose, but it would be pretty freaking awesome.
It'd be risk. It'd be risk. That's what he'd be.
Or Catan or something.
Lose
like
by
that.
turn 2. Like, you'd have lost at turn 2.
Exactly.
And you would have just been like, this has just been all.
He'd be a rule
into my hand.
He'd be a rule king. He'd be like, no, you can't do that.
Before we go any further, when Enoch informs him about the TIE fighters, he says, "Okay, write the captain up for citation." What did he do wrong? He sent the 2 TIE fighters out and they got shot down. How is the captain at fault there?
Yeah.
They didn't get shot down. They got
destroyed. Yeah,
I don't
Yeah.
know if there's even bodies. Like they can't even bring anything home.
Right? Oh, it's just like,
Yeah.
what did the captain of that squadron do to
Captain
deserve
should have
that
prepared
citation?
them better. I don't know. But
Reinforce the hull.
yes. But he commands Enoch to prepare for a ground assault immediately. And Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra ride on howlers towards the fortress and the Chimera. Morgan commands a group of night troopers to go with the blessing of the Great Mothers. As Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra ride towards the fortress, Thrawn commands the rain of hellfire upon them. As massive turbo lasers fire on them, the ground around them explodes, and they all use the Force to open the fortress door. Inside, they face off against a large group of night troopers, and they manage to defeat them all pretty swiftly. But as the Great Mothers chant, the bodies of the night troopers begin to crack and jerk back to life. They begin to groan and scream as they reanimate to life over and over again. After almost being overrun, they manage to fend them off and seal the blast doors, allowing them to hear the Eye of Sion beginning to latch onto the Chimera. So, I think the first of some incredible action sequences in this episode. And Darcy, what did you think of zombie troopers? We finally got them. They're here. We had a hint with Merrick, but now we've got zombie troopers. How you feeling?
I mean, it's awesome. We've wanted this since they were rumored back in Mandalorian season 2 or whatever, when we saw those the clones or the cages, the tanks of whatever. But seeing zombie stormtroopers is great. I'm a sucker for broken and used stormtrooper armor. I think that's one of my favorite
so cool.
visuals in Star Wars, whenever it's weathered and cracked. And first we got these cool the Kitsugiri or whatever with the gold patching and then the red tape, and now we're getting zombies inside that armor. These are the coolest form of stormtroopers you can ever get. So I'm 100% on board for that. And again, this whole sequence when they were fighting together and the way that they just, as soon as Sabine is starting to struggle, Ahsoka's like, go back to the blasters, you're strong with them, hold our backs, type thing. And that's when Ezra's able to jump forward. He pulls the last two people into Ahsoka.
That was cool.
Flawlessly functioning as a team. That was really cool combat.
That was sick. That was just that moment. I was like, oh,
me too.
Hype, get off the seat, raise your fist in the air moment.
I will say it did feel a little clunky leading into it, though. Just because as they were standing there, and it just,
zombies
have that
clunky, Justin. They're meant to be clunky.
not the
Ahsoka
zombies.
spins her sabers a couple times that are.
Yeah,
it looks like
it just seemed more choreographed. Like she didn't seem like she was entirely comfortable with the choreography when they were getting blasted by the stormtroopers. Also, did you notice those stormtrooper who slipped on the stairs?
Yes.
Slipped and then he got back up. And
but he was a zombie, Justin. I think it's okay. They're allowed to slip.
He wasn't a zombie yet. No,
not at that point.
It was before. I'm talking about before they go to zombies.
Okay.
They're only human. You got to leave those little slip-ups in. That's part of Star Wars.
How do we know that they were not zombies initially in the room?
Yeah.
They became
How do you know
super
that
zombies.
these have not?
At that point. Yeah, it's a very good point.
I had assumed that this army was the crew of the Chimera that died in the battle, it was everyone who staffed that ship that died in the final kind of rebels.
Oh, interesting.
Climax.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the one thing too is there's been some visual giveaways that haven't really been confirmed or denied, but I think that with Merrick's death and the way that he kind of spewed that green, I think it's safe to say that there was some sort of resurrection power that was at work with giving him, and he's probably an inquisitor of some kind from the past. But coming into with these stormtroopers, in last week's episode when they were fighting, there was a lot of people saying, oh, well, they're getting slashed and blasted. There's no green smoke. So I guess it's safe to assume that they're not zombies. And then here you have Morgan asking them almost permission, getting their approval to be volunteers. And it's interesting because do they need to commit and basically agree to become zombies for them?
It's like when you invite a vampire into your house or something like that kind of rule.
Do they have to welcome that spirit in a way? Because I thought that was really, really intriguing that there was this sense of how have they been, they're willing to make the sacrifice, or they're willing to go through. I can't remember the term that was used, but the idea that there was a sense of they were asked if they would be willing to take part, and they said, sure, yeah, let's do this thing. But to your point, it does make a lot. It's 9 years. What happened to all these stormtroopers? Are they all dead and just kind of resurrected, or is it that they kind of banded together and found a sense of leadership behind Thrawn because he kept them alive, quote unquote?
You can only live off so much noti crab meat, Justin. I
Exactly.
think, like that's
For sure.
those little freaks probably don't feed a lot if you find them.
They're not eating them. Don't say that. My sweet little
Eating
boys.
a sentient species. I'd eat the dogs or whatever.
Oh,
the dog
no.
horses.
I wanted to ask you guys, do you think that is this Thrawn's plan? The Night Troopers? Is this the idea that I'm going to build an army that just can never die?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say this for a bit later on, but I just quick answer is yes. I totally think this is part of his plan.
Mhm.
Yeah, again. I'll get into it later on. Thrawn is the one character where I feel like I have the most idea of what his goal is. So
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. We'll chat about that for sure. But no, I think I agree with you, Darcy. There's also other plans afoot that we'll get to that I think maybe are not always like totally his. But I did want to just mention like the screams coming from their helmets, like the microphone peaking at one point. I think again, I'm like Star Wars horror, like it can totally work. And we've done the fantasy, we've done the political stuff. Like now let's try other genres. I can't wait. But I also want to just go back for a second to the sequence when they're riding on the Howlers. And Klein, I think your co-host coined them as platypups. Is that what?
Yeah.
Is that what he calls them?
They kind of look like platypus wolves. I don't know, with the weird bills.
Yeah.
Platypups reminds me of something straight out of like Avatar, like The Last Airbender. Like I'm thinking platypups. But dude, seeing them ride in was just insanely cool. The cinematography, like the low angle shots as these explosions are going on all around them. It's some of the most cinematic stuff that I think I've ever seen on Disney Plus anything. And it's the kind of sort of shots that I want from live action Star Wars series more often. Like watching this, I'm like, this is the movie. This is a movie moment. This is the movie budget. And so if that's what we can expect from Filoni's movie, awesome. But also, let's do it even more in these live action shows. I just thought it looked so incredible. I don't know.
You couldn't see the seams, which was nice. Like we've had so many instances, and I keep going back to like one of those early chases in Book of Boba Fett where like it looks like they're running on a set. Like it just, the way that these walls look like they are made of plywood and you could knock them over. And this to me felt, as you said, it felt like a movie. It felt like I was at the movie theater. It didn't feel like TV, which Disney Plus, obviously you've got Disney behind it, a multi-billion-dollar company or whatever, like they can put the money into it. It's just a matter of allotting those resources and making it. And to me, like, this looked great. I've been pretty anti-volume for a long time. The only instances I've really liked it have been in the Batman. I find it dead. You can tell like the difference between Andor and Mandalorian, and it's just like,
totally.
One of these was shot at a place and the other was shot in a room with a big screen behind them. And this to me, you can tell is all volume stuff, but it didn't bug me. It's did the way that this is lit, the way that the visual effects seamlessly blend into it as well. It felt real.
Yeah, for such a small moment, they gave it the right amount of attention or allotment of visual effects budget to make it look good and not cheesy. I also think what I really loved about this whole moment, while you're seeing them sort of avoid these blasts, they intercut Thrawn's face, who's just kind of like making like these eyes, and he's sort of like he's like kind of like moving his lips because he's trying to he's like hit them, just blast them, just like one of them needs to like get hit, and then that's it. That's all he was like. You could see in his eyes that, and then when they made it through, he like kind of relaxed and he's like, okay, all right, stage two. Next step. Let's move into that. So I think it was really cool that they are in a lot of ways highlighting Thrawn's sort of level of urgency, but you're kind of seeing a little unhingedness, just a little. Do you know what I mean? Like in the sense of like he's afraid and he may lose control.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I think what's so exciting about that is it's very early days for Thrawn, which means that we're going to get Madman Thrawn at some point in maybe the nearer future. But also I'm really happy we didn't get, I like it when characters can recognize something new, that the audience is also recognizing something new. So Ahsoka saying like, has this happened before? And Ezra's like, this has never happened before. I'm just glad they didn't go with something like Ahsoka being like, they undie now? And Ezra responds with, they undie now. Like, that would just, I don't think that would have worked. That's my second joke. Thank you, Klein, for laughing. Morgan.
I thought it. When it happened, I thought it. I was like, they undie now?
Thank you. Morgan informs Thrawn that they are ready to depart, and Thrawn informs her that with the pace in which the Jedi are advancing, that she must help them gain more time. Understanding what she has to do, she accepts the decision, and after Thrawn says, "For the Empire," and walks away, Morgan whispers, "For Dathomir." Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra are then stopped in their tracks by Morgan, and Ahsoka demands that Sabine and Ezra continue to stop Thrawn. As Ahsoka and Morgan begin to duel, Sabine and Ezra run into some trouble of their own with a pair of undead Death Knight troopers, or Night Death Troopers, however you want to pronounce that. As the Chimera ignites its engines, Sabine is being choked out, but manages to use the Force to pull her saber towards her. Ezra and her then are able to defeat the Death Knight troopers. She then helps Ezra to make the jump onto the Chimera using the Force. He just manages to make it, and as he calls out for Sabine, she hesitates. Back with Ahsoka and Morgan, Ahsoka begins to stumble as her Shoto blade saber is cut in half. Morgan says, "You'll die here alone," and Sabine surprises them by saying, "Not alone." After Morgan shouts, "Kill her!" the Night Troopers begin to attack Sabine, and Ahsoka then finishes her duel with Morgan by taking the blade of Talzin from her hand and slicing into her with both blades. Ezra, realizing his next move, responds to a comm on the body of the dead Night Trooper that Sabine shot. Very Ezra moment. And Ahsoka calls for Huyang as the Chimera begins to bombard the fortress. Huyang shows up just in time, and Sabine and Ahsoka make their escape and begin their chase towards the now departing Star Destroyer. Whew. So there is a lot to break down here, a lot to talk about. I'll let anyone talk. What did you think of the Death Knight troopers, or Sabine using the Force to lift her saber or to throw Ezra like immediately after, or the destruction of Ahsoka's Shoto blade, and of course I think the most phenomenal fight choreography between Ahsoka and Morgan. I'm going to throw it to anybody to chime in.
I mean, there's a lot to break down. Obviously, anytime you play the Force theme, I am going to be happy, and we finally got it. I think that this series had a significant lack of those recognizable Star Wars melodies, but that's not to say the music here was like Kevin Kiner went off. Like the beginning of this episode is incredible. There's so many good musical moments, but anytime you can throw some John Williams in there, some rearrangement of John Williams, I'm going to be happy. And so when Sabine reaches out and pulls for the first time and you hear that melody, it just I get tears in my eyes anytime I hear that theme. Doesn't matter where it happens or when it happens. And so I was tearing up for that. And as you said, this Ahsoka Morgan rematch is it is so good. It's Morgan Elspeth's actress, Diana Lee Inosanto. Yeah. So I found this out today. The Lee in that name is because she was raised by Bruce Lee.
Yeah. She's a great
was a family friend. Yeah. And so that's why you think, oh man, this stunt double's doing work. No, that is her doing that. And she it is incredible. I've said it a couple times elsewhere, written it. A lot of the saber fights in this series feel the most samurai Star Wars fights that we've gotten, which is funny because that's the idea. Star Wars was very that was George Lucas's thing. And so getting that realized on screen is really, really cool. And there's just so many good moments. The line, the "you want to get out of here" line is great. When Ahsoka's it's time to go. And they leap and land on top of the ship. But yeah, this is the epic climax I was hoping for in this finale. The finale overall, I have my issues with, but this section in particular is where it really shines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I guess, yeah, that exit is so Obi-Wan and Anakin, just the way they just fully trust.
It's so Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
That's
it
the
truly
Ahsoka
is.
I've been missing.
Yeah. It's so good. I love that the whole thing. And again, the fight leading up to it is great. I love the fact that Sabine makes a choice to stay with her master. She realizes that's where she's needed right now, and it's so cool for that reveal to come back. It's great. Again, Ezra putting on the armor or preparing to take the place of a trooper is so classic. I love that so much.
I did want to just go back for a minute, though, to talk about, again, like the conversation between Thrawn and Morgan here and her sacrifice. I think this moment with Lars Mikkelsen, like talking about performances, the way he pauses just before he says we require a little more time is so damn good, because it's showing that he understands the weight of what he's asking Morgan to do, right? The idea that like he's wanted nothing but to get off this planet for so long, and now he's asking her to stay on this planet and most likely die, which he says for the Empire. And I love like the Diana Lee Inosanto's just precision in the way she just says for Dathomir is so good. And it just, that, Darcy, you were mentioning earlier about the concept of like, well, Klein, you asked, is this his plan overall? I think it's the Night Sisters' plan overall. I think once they get back to Dathomir, I think, like, if anything, I think they are the ones that have more control over these troopers, or over, maybe they're not troopers, maybe they're Dathomirians, they're Night Sisters, what have you. But I really think that that's kind of where we could end up. And I think the other thing to mention too, as great as she was, even though she died in this moment, did she die? Because like they got magics.
We don't know,
right? Like they could bring her back.
But I mean, with the Great Mother say she's dead, you kind of believe people
but maybe they don't want her to be. Maybe they're saying she's dead for Thrawn.
Maybe. I do think though that them saying that and them not being there to actually resurrect her means that she's dead.
She's gone.
She served her purpose. And to the point of what we were talking about at the beginning here, it was clear that Morgan has been used as a pawn this entire time, even when she reluctantly accepts the fact that she's going to have to be there, right? She doesn't see it for the Empire. She sees it for Dathomir. That's why she's there, going to stay there. She's staying there for Dathomir. And I think that really does highlight her own independence away from the fact of just being Thrawn's pawn, if you will. That rhymed oddly. Yeah, so the choreography, though, unreal. Round two between Ahsoka and Morgan, it did not disappoint. To your point, Klein, Diana Lee, she brought her A game. We got to finally see, I think, a side of her that everyone knows is there, and that has been playing as the background. She hasn't even been seen that much through this season, and it goes hard in these last moments, and it's so well done, which again just makes it all like, I just wish she didn't die. I just wish she didn't, I wish she was stuck on there and it became an enemy,
or she had gotten away.
Or she had gotten away, like, exactly.
I would have maybe also have been happier if we kind of got her as this Asajj Ventress-esque character moving forward.
That's what I thought they were doing.
She's kind of like this second in command, like underling of Thrawn, who does the dirty work and is out there in the field while he's behind everyone else playing chess on the chessboard.
So that was my running theory at the start, was that they basically injected her with the spirit of Asajj Ventress, and that's kind of what we would unravel. And I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be cool. I can't wait to see what her story unfolds. And she dies. And I'm like, damn, like there goes that theory. But, again, the time that we had with her, it's great. And to your point, Nate, I guess who knows if they can resurrect, stormtroopers, who knows? They can resurrect anyone. And
it's
clearly
possible.
Resurrection is on top of their mind, but
there are different levels of resurrection. That's for sure.
I think,
and we don't know the properties of this planet, right? Like, as we get to later, is like, Mortis, like we don't know what that means.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Klein, I think to your point too, like thinking of almost alternate ways that they could have, I always try to think like, try not to rewrite the episodes or be a writer. Yeah. We're not writers. But still, I think the idea of Morgan almost like Ahsoka gets to her and then Morgan just sort of stepping aside and like pointing the way, like would have maybe been just as badass as this incredible choreography. But I will say this choreography brought me back to like the throne room scene in The Last Jedi, or heck, like I would even go so far as to say it was giving me Duel of the Fates vibes. Like it's so well done. But I do think I think they could bring her back. I don't know.
Also, zombie troopers or zombie night troopers. Those guys,
Death Night Troopers.
Death Night Troopers. Like I thought they were like two versions of like the Mountain, just in body armor.
Oh,
like there's a lot of Game of Thrones stuff that goes into this from a political side and a visual side, but it was really cool to see these two massive zombified death troopers that were zombies just attack, and like that blade shot to the head, another throne room reference, right? Just like right through the head. Sabine was able to do it, and I guess the logic applies. If they're zombies, go for the head.
Yes.
That's essentially what they're saying. So thankfully, that's still the case in Star Wars Galaxy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty cool too.
I also just talk about that lightsaber shot, the lead up to it being that Luke reference too, where it's like when we first see him again and he's really comfortable with his powers, he calls for his lightsaber and gets it, and that's what we see Sabine do here. It's awesome little callback there again. There he's calling back to all eras of Star Wars. Filoni is just as big a fan of as we are, and he is going to keep giving us all these delicious little callbacks because so good.
Well, and I'm hearing a lot of people talking about like they're doing the thing that happened with Rey back in the day of like, how could she possibly like lift Ezra? She just lifted a Force saber. Why, you unlock the Force, and that's you've got it now. And I think I have two sort of thoughts on that. Number one, she's finally listening to her master's advice and putting all her trust in the Force. This guy that she's endangered an entire galaxy over. The amount of trust you'd have to have in the Force to throw him onto the Chimera must be immense. So I think this is a clear sign that she's trusting in the Force and listening to her master, which is awesome. The other thing I was wondering, and not in a weird romantic relationship like the Chimera and the Fortress, but in a way that like I think it could really work. Like, what if they're a dyad in the Force, like her and Ezra? Like, I think them together are more powerful than we've seen, and so maybe Sabine, if we do get to a season 2, maybe she struggles without Ezra, and they start to sort of realize that they're much better together than they are apart. I don't know. Maybe that's taken a little too far to bring the dyad back into things, but it feels very Filoni to use something like the dyad to kind of explain away, why Sabine is able to unlock that so quickly.
I think it has something to do with family, the thing that she's been yearning for the most. It's her brother. That's the thing. You notice that she's strongest when she knows what's at stake, when her family's at risk.
Right.
You know what I mean? So opening those gates, right? Pulling the lightsaber when Ezra was being tackled and using that to strike down the stormtrooper that had him, right? Like you see these moments where her powers really flourish when her family is at risk, right? And I think that was a lot of the reason why she was able to pull that saber so quickly and mask that, and also why she was able to throw Ezra. And that's a classic Rebels thing, the Rebel throw, right? They do the loop the throw kind of thing, and I love that found its way into this. And yes, Sabine has never done it, and even Ezra's like, I don't know if we need to be moving that fast on your training. But then there's no other hope, and I'm really glad to see that. Like obviously we knew she was going to be able to do it, but the way the Force theme just gets dropped as a needle drop in that moment was just was like chef's kiss. Like it all just highlights it really, really well. So you recognize that moment that she is, as you said, Nate, fully committing and listening to the Force and the guidance of her master.
And the use of that Force theme, I will say, Klein, like I do think that Kiner has sparingly used Williams' themes. We did get the Force theme earlier in the season as well, with Jason hearing the waves crashing and what have you, and hearing them in the world between worlds. But I think
what a moment. Listen to the waves.
Oh, so good! Like that episode. But I think the way that Kiner is working with the working them into some of the overall moments of the show. And the fact that it sort of follows the way that Filoni is just taking something nostalgic and reinterpreting it is just perfect. It's so good. And I also just want to shout out dismemberment. Please, more dismemberment with lightsabers, please and thank you, because like what the heck? Like how could you what's with all these like just little cuts and things like and stabs? Like no. Dismemberment. It was the coolest thing when Ahsoka did it. It was cool to see a night trooper or a Death Knight trooper's head roll on the ground here. I think we need more of it in live action Star Wars. I'm just saying.
I wanted Morgan Elspeth to be just right down the.
Oh yeah, give me a Maul style like sort of another Dathomirian
legs.
All right.
Before I move on, I also gotta say I'm glad Sabine finally figured out the best fighting style, which is the blaster lightsaber combo.
Yeah,
that's what I was doing in Jedi Survivor. So
I hope she like brings that back as like a sort of like a 2-in-1 sort of thing that Ezra
like
has.
Ezra's original.
Yeah, I loved that.
Season 1.
If she ever meets Cal Kestis and they talk about like they're just in the background, they're like, yeah, that is the best fighting style. You're right. It's just it'd be so cool. All right. Before we keep writing Star Wars, as all power is sent towards the T6's engines, they swiftly attempt to catch up to Thrawn. Thrawn opens a channel and commends Ahsoka on her efforts. He regrets that he'll never get to meet her face to face, even though he knows her, because he knows her master. He says, one wonders just how similar you might become, and that perhaps this is where a Ronin such as you belongs. He says, today, victory is mine. And as he proudly says, long live the Empire, the Chimera blasts its way into galactic hyperspace, leaving Ahsoka, Sabine, and Huyang stranded on Peridia. Klein, this is some incredible dialogue from Thrawn to Ahsoka here. Let's talk about it. I want to talk about the use of the word Ronin to describe her and just how perfectly Thrawn this moment was.
It was, as you said, perfectly Thrawn. I will never forget the today victory is mine. Like, this is where a Ronin like you belongs. It reminded me, very different, but it reminded me a lot of like the Andor monologues that we'd get from like Skarsgård, where he's like, I dream and I see ghosts and like, but it's this moment for me. Following this moment is where my like issues with the show, with this finale, really, really come into play. I like this kind of it doesn't seem very Thrawn to like rub it in their face, but it's
been a long time for him.
I am eating it up. Exactly. He's been waiting a long time.
Yeah.
Use of Ronin is really interesting. I've seen some people online actually saying that maybe they should have called this show The Ronin, like Star Wars Ronin or whatever, because it was so Ahsoka was very central, but Sabine was very involved, and obviously we get a whole lot of other characters as well. But Ronin is interesting because that's kind of what she has been, and it's we've been saying it for a long time, really since the end of Clone Wars. That's kind of what she's been, this kind of work for hire, almost what Din Djarin was in season 1 of The Mandalorian, and what he is seemingly going to be going forward after season 3. I like it. I love Japanese culture and all of that, and seeing the samurai influences on Star Wars is neat. So just to have it actually said is pretty cool.
And again, while it was incredible Thrawn and he sounded awesome while he was saying it, I feel like him using the word Ronin shows how he doesn't know who Ahsoka is, because she is not alone. Ronin is a solo or lone warrior, and she
was alone.
She was,
right?
but she isn't now.
So long.
That's the big thing, though, is that she isn't now. So again, Thrawn doesn't like Jedi because they're so unpredictable. He met Anakin when he was the brash young Jedi Knight, when they had to work together to try and survive on this planet. Then he worked with him as Darth Vader, and again, that line, who knows how similar you two are type thing. Like, he knows that Anakin is Vader, and that was just him again being like trying to throw her off her game as much as possible in these final moments so that maybe she can't find her way back. But yeah, no, I love hearing the word Ronin in it, because again, that's kind of what inspired Star Wars to begin with. And I love how the fact that I am now thinking that's showing that Thrawn thinks he's won, but really Ahsoka is just going to be stronger from here on out because she's got her Padawan with her and they are on the same page. And I love for what potential that might bring.
Yeah, no, I think this is good that we get this moment that Thrawn sort of flexes like, haha, I won, I beat you. But obviously more elegant than that. I think the lines are so well written for Mikkelsen to just deliver with such confidence and poise. It's perfect. But yeah, the use of the word Ronin, as we were talking, this episode has a lot of visual influences from samurai films, from samurai choreography and fighting. This is our first instance, if I'm not mistaken, in all of Star Wars, where we hear a Japanese word that is from our own world used within.
They did
within
use
Star Wars.
daimyo before as well.
Okay, so
in Book of
daimyo
Boba
is
Fett.
as,
but I know we
right,
don't want to
sure.
talk about Book of Boba Fett, so go ahead.
Sure, no, but that's fine. And maybe that again, that's another sense of a word that helps to describe a leader in a way. But the idea of a Ronin and the idea that there are Jedis that have operated in that way, that have operated with that Ronin mentality. I think even that speaks to Balin to a certain degree. It helps to affirm and validate what those inspirations are, and it brings that word into Star Wars lore as being something else, not in relation obviously samurais, but in relation to Jedi. So I really loved it. I just think that it was just a nice way of bridging those two and really openly acknowledging the influences of samurai storytelling, samurai stories into Star Wars.
Well, Darcy, you're right. Like the definition of the Ronin is that they are alone, and she isn't. But another part of that definition and some of the more expanded definitions of the word also talk about the idea of a Ronin being masterless, usually, as a result of failure. And so I think that is really, Thrawn's intention here is to just really sting. Like he found out that it was Anakin who was her master, and he is digging the knife in. I think he's
even wrong about that still, as we see right in this episode.
Sure. But I think he's the perfect antagonist for a Jedi, because of the fact that, Ahsoka mentions how it's not all about lightsaber combat, and that's not his thing at all. And just Lars Mikkelsen. Oh, okay. Let's get to the sequence that maybe a few of us might have a few more problems with. In our final sequences, we see Sabine and Ahsoka return to the Noti, who are more than excited to see them. Shout out to those little guys, by the way. Just as they arrive, Ahsoka sees an owl in the distance. It's the Morai, her owl companion. We also see Shin making contact with the bandits, raising her orange saber in the distance. And then we see Balin walking out on the arm of a massive statue built into the mountainside. A statue comprised of the father, the son, and the daughter of Mortis, though the daughter's statue is destroyed, creating a gap between her and the other two. As Balin quietly looks out onto the horizon, we see a blinking orange light emanating as Balin can't take his eyes off it. Okay, let's start off. I think I want to start off with Klein. The Mortis gods are very much there on Peridia. Let's talk about this. I want to hear from your perspective. What's Shin up to? What's Balin up to? What does it mean that Ahsoka saw the Morai?
I interpreted it as being, okay, this is Mortis.
Cool. I like that a lot.
I know that some people, maybe the Mortis gods have been there, but we don't really know what Mortis is. Mortis, the Mortis arc from Clone Wars. If you're unfamiliar, they appear in this planet, and it's kind of like, is this in their mind? Is it? We don't know where it is in the galaxy, and so in my head, that's what's happening here. I don't know what it means. I guess the idea would be that Balin is potentially searching to end this kind of cyclical thing of the father and the daughter and the son kind of always being around and possessing that, like the father's kind of, I guess, the balance in between the dark and the light, the daughter's the light, the son is the dark, and him potentially opening his mind and his horizons into that. And I don't know what that means for him once he gets that power, but that seems to be where he is going. As for where we leave Balin and Shin in this episode, I am absolutely flabbergasted that this is all we got.
I agree.
And it's especially, and I know you can't you can't change things based on outside events, but especially with the Ray Stevenson situation, where he was the most interesting part of this show to me.
Yep.
I didn't think he would be coming in. He was the best character. He had the best lines. I wanted to know what was going on with him. And then we get this, And now knowing, like, rest in peace, Ray Stevenson, but I'm also sitting here going, like, damn, like, we missed out on something.
Yep.
And I wish they had given us more of it.
Yeah.
What they do with that story, obviously, they're gonna, I guess, have to recast. He's a new enough character. Yes. You might be able to do that. But the fact that literally as Sabine and Ahsoka were leaving the planet, I out loud watching this said, we haven't gotten any Shin or Baylan yet. And then and what's with this Shin scene? I'm gonna raise my saber and turn it on at the Raiders, and that's it. That's done. Like, it's
what does she
over.
want to do? You know, I think the thing with Shin was like, I was like, okay, maybe, and this is me reaching here, which I've done on this podcast before. So Darcy, call me out on my bull.
Reach away.
I think the only thing I can think of is like the last lesson her master taught her was to exercise patience, and also the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So taking those two ideas as the last things that Baylan told her, that would be the next step course of action for her. Fine. She wants to go and pursue Ahsoka and Sabine that maybe she knows is back on the planet, but she doesn't. She says, I'm going to exercise patience here. I'm going to build a little army. It didn't fully work for me, and a lot of the stuff with Baylan didn't fully work for me, and I feel like, to your point, Klein, it felt very much like there were things removed from this episode that we could have gotten more of, and I don't know if maybe they're holding it off for a second season. Maybe they want to instead of recasting, they want to find a way to continue to use some footage that hasn't been used.
It felt like they wrote the episode, and then we're like, oh no, we forgot about Baylan and Shin. What do we do? I'll just put them in at the end. Like, it felt very thrown together.
Very.
We'll throw in some fan service. People
thrown together.
Right. Yeah. Thrown together.
Darcy, you've been waiting for a while. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Baylan makes sense to me. Again, after we left him when he lost to Ahsoka in the last battle there, again, he kind of got the idea that he didn't really care about that battle. He was on to bigger and better things.
Yes.
Forget Thrawn.
Yes.
The whole thing about Shin is what really irks me, because he told her to go find your place within the new empire, and she was going to return to Thrawn. So what happened that she didn't return to Thrawn?
Right.
Because where
Ahsoka scared her.
Where's that disconnect?
Yeah.
Like, I'm very confused by that. But
those naughty slingshots really struck the fear of God in her.
I guess so.
I
guess so.
I'm not going back.
The only way I can see maybe their story continuing, and again, the way that Baylan's story left off, they were clearly intending to tell another story on this planet with Sabine, Ahsoka, and Shin and Baylan.
Correct.
But now I feel like they're going to try and scramble to find a way to tell that story, and I feel like one of the ways they could is maybe Baylan does get to where he's searching for, but the power overwhelms him. He becomes one with the Force, and it's more just the voice in Shin's head now, or the master guiding her from beyond to continue his purpose. Like that, I feel like is one way they could describe it. But again, more explanation as to why Shin is still there. That was the most confusing thing to me.
Yeah. I think Shin doesn't trust Thrawn. I think in that moment that she's left there to face off the Jedis and all the stormtroopers are being called back, she realizes that Thrawn is pulling a retreat, right? And doesn't care. And I think that in a lot of ways, she knows that she can't trust Thrawn. Her master has now left her. And to your point, we got our sort of send-off, quote-unquote send-off, to Baylan's character last week. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'm out. Peace. I got to go find this thing. It's calling me. I'm going to go check that out. Y'all just do what you need to do here. And, I think Shin in that moment is very broken. I guess that, like, I can agree with you guys. There's not enough of an explanation, but the one thing about Ivana Sakno, her performance in her facial reaction and the way she kind of conveys emotions, it's been flawless. And even in this moment, it's just like she's broken.
Yeah,
she's lost. She doesn't have anything. Her masters abandoned her. The potential for being of a rank of an empire has fleeted away. She's nothing. She's left on this planet. And I think, and as a last resort, throwing her saber up is sort of a to your point, the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of mentality, and maybe executing some patience. And who knows how that's going to play out in a season 2. But I holistically believe that this series was written always with the intention of a season 2, and that Balin's story was not to end but to continue, even go further, and almost to affirm the reason as to why Sabine and Ahsoka were left on this planet. You know, we see Morai, we see the Mortis gods. There is a reason that she's traveled here more than just Thrawn. But this episode really does go back to that singular focus. It just shifts it back and it says, we got to close out this story of what brought Ahsoka here. And, you know, we can continue with what that was. And I appreciate the show did that. And honestly, it might not have been much to see Balin just walk out on top of the statue, but it was enough for me to at least get me stoked and excited for what's next, and just a little bit of an affirmation as to what I think he's looking for and what he's on the hunt for. And I'm totally with you. I think that this could be Mortis, because the statue of the daughter being broken, that's what happened in that Mortis arc, those 3 episodes in Clone Wars. Her statue gets destroyed is almost a foreshadow to her inevitable death. So I think that this is a representation of Mortis years later, after Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka had visited it so many years ago, right?
Interesting.
From this moment. So I think that we're on the right track there.
I think that it's with Balin and Shin in these moments, it isn't where we leave them that I have the issue. I don't have the issue with the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Like we just watched Across the Spider-Verse, and I think that did this cliffhanger ending so much better, because we started building in those check-ins, I think, a lot earlier. So it felt like we were really running with these characters to the end. I would have almost preferred, and here I am rereading the series again, had that Shin and Balin breakup happened. Maybe they come up over the hillside as Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra are coming in below the Chimera at the beginning of this episode. They break up. He does his thing. Shin gets scared off, does her thing. I just would have liked to have had
More with them. Yeah.
More of them in this, because at the very end, it did feel very much like, oh yeah, what about these guys?
Right.
Well, it's interesting too, because and a few people have noticed this as well, and I don't know if it's an editing error or if it has to do with some of these moments being reorganized, or if it's just like a continuity thing. Like when Ahsoka gets off the howler, you can see she has 2 sabers when like she should only have one because one was chopped in half. Like, unless she has more than one on the ship, or she like quickly grabbed them and repaired them in between those moments. It just, to me, it just felt like maybe that moment of them reuniting with the Noti was meant for another spot in the episode, or even her seeing the Morai or what have you.
I feel like it could have happened while they were floating in space after being dislodged from that hyperspace, because their ship was kind of frozen up there. You know,
they do have a huge repository of lightsaber parts,
and that I think Hu Yang could have helped her there and stuff.
Sure.
And I again,
we also don't know how much time has
we don't
passed.
But they do look very happy. Like the Noti are like, oh, you're back. Like, we thought you were gone. You know what I mean? Like, they have that sense of like, oh, you know, like we didn't think that you were, you know, thing. And there is a sense of like monumentous sort of like, hey, we're here kind of thing with the ship rising, the T6 and stuff like that. So I think a little bit of time has passed that may be able to justify how she could have fixed her saber, because I'm sure she picked up those pieces. It's not like it disintegrated into the air, just split in half.
But I don't know if she would have time. It was a very hasty exit as
that's the only thing
crumbling.
I don't know.
Sure.
But again, they have more than enough lightsaber parts in that ship. Hu Yang is there. He's made so many.
They can rebuild it.
Yeah,
they could rebuild
and
it.
then Disney can sell us yet another lightsaber. But I will say, I am of two minds of kind of where we're going back and forth in terms of like this ending for these characters. I think, you know, there's sort of the side of like, you know, Hollywood is really rough right now, and so it's super frustrating that we don't have an announcement for season 2. And so, you know, we to not get a little more as to what Balin was up to, or even just another moment of like incredible dialogue and incredible monologue from this character. And then the other side is of course they're going to do a season 2, or of course they're going to continue these characters in some way. There's no way that they can't. Because it's not only is it Star Wars, but it's Filoni Star Wars. So we're gonna get to explore, and we're gonna, you know, I'm excited by that sequence. Like seeing the Mortis Gods statue was really cool. Like as a fan of the animated stuff, and so I you know, again, I think this gets me theorizing and hoping for the best. I'm incredibly sad still that it won't be through Ray Stevenson that we get to see the rest of this character brought out, probably, again, unless they use some additional footage.
I don't think that's how you would approach that. I think Klein is on the right path. It's like, it's a new enough character that you could recast, but you respect that recast. The recast is done intentionally to help, honor and continue what Ray Stevenson did with that character, because this character clearly, I think anyone that's watched the show, is of huge friggin' importance.
Yeah.
And if and anyone who knows Star Wars knows that things like this aren't written necessarily as just a silo. Like, there's always the intention of a part 2. And that's what this epilogue does, very much like the epilogue of the finale in Rebels.
Sure.
Right? Where we see these moments sort of manifest themselves in a way to help say, this is what's next. So even though there might be an air of uncertainty around whether there's a season 2 or not, I think that's very much the lens in which people are looking at this finale. It's like, if there's no season 2, does this really give satisfactory, close to some of the biggest and most interesting parts of the show? Or, if it is, there is going to be a season 2, what's next? Because I think that there's so much more that's here. Nate and I were talking offline. I don't think there's a shadow of a doubt that Ray Stevenson didn't know in himself as the actor what Baylan ends up finding and where he ends up. I'm sure Filoni had shared that with him before. And that sort of is built into his performance and knowing where he was going. But I think part of the reason why we haven't gotten any announcement or any immediacy of the announcement has a lot to do with respecting Ray Stevenson being, having his moment, having this time to shine, celebrating the show. And I think when they can announce something, it'll be after, hopefully, a strike. Because like you said, Nate, it's all fuzzy right now with this actor strike. It will happen after, and maybe with the caveat of a recasting, or they may wait to announce that. And I think they're going to give real push and real justification as to why they did this recasting and how it's going to respect the performance. Because honestly, to do anything else like CGI or incorporate old footage and then just kill him off, that's all such a disservice to the character. You're just writing out the character. I think the idea the character is so important and his journey is not done. And anything that was missing, which I don't see anything missing from this episode. I think that epilogue was just like, here's what you can expect for a part 2. And it was so loose that it was what it was. But those characters are going to matter so much more in season 2. That's what the affirmation was. So I don't know. It's more or less the lens in which you look at what's next for Star Wars.
For sure. And I agree with you. And then, but I'm greedy. I want more. But I think seeing the Morai, it really helped me to sort of understand why Ahsoka is so chill being back there. I think her seeing the Morai was the explanation to her that, hey, you're here for a reason. And I think that's really what made that shift in her. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then I just want to shout out Kiner's piano score. When Baylan is walking out, I got so like Westworld vibes coming on, like the do-do-do-do-do-do-do. I was like, so good. I think all the music surrounding Baylan is probably my favorite of what Kevin and his family composed for the show. It's just so good. But listen, we got to keep going here. The Chimera descends towards Dathomir, and we see the Great Mothers they're kind of giving like little smirkies. And then we see the cargo, what looks like thousands of caskets all packed up in rows. So, we've kind of talked about this in the podcast before. Darcy, what's in that cargo? Is it troopers? Is it Dathomiri brothers and sisters? Or could it be something else?
Well, I think it is Dathomiri brothers and sisters. And I feel like the reason why Thrawn and the Night Sisters or Great Mothers are working together is for the fact that there is now a power vacuum in the galaxy. They were always butting heads with the Sith and Palpatine in particular, and that's what led to the downfall of Dathomir. And now that the Empire's fallen, there's this new vacuum that the Dathomiri can rise back to power. So I feel like 100% it is something to do with their culture, whether it be it Night Brothers or Sisters or some other people who are related to Dathomir in ancient past. I don't know. Again, these people have been on Peridia for so long. What's to say that they are the same Night Sisters that we know from our galaxy? So yeah, they're definitely working together for that power vacuum, because the galaxy needs to have something controlling it, and the Night Sisters, I think, want to do that.
Well, it's interesting because it was predicted by the Bendu that Thrawn would be defeated amongst the cold embrace of many arms, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, the Purgle. But I think it's even a cooler idea that maybe it's this army. One thing that I heard was floating around, people were talking about like, oh, bring Maul back. I don't want that to happen. As cool as that could be to get Maul back yet again, I think it would undercut the really phenomenal sequence with him and Obi-Wan in Rebels. But I will say, and I don't know if this is possible because I don't know if his body like disappeared into smoke or something, but how insane would it be if we got a live action brother of Maul, Savage Opress?
He already died and came back and was resurrected and died again.
But then he could be brought back again for live action, Darcy? Come on.
It would be the Trinity that he could do with it. So
it would be sick.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like this is obviously the biggest clue to Thrawn's master plan, to resurrect an army of Dathomirians that he can lead as the new empire, or with that foresight. And the fact that Peridia gave him that, and he's coming back with a full-on force. It does raise a lot of interesting questions about what this next iteration of war is going to look like.
Ooh. Yeah, and I also just want to shout out the cinematography here one more time. The Eye of Sion closing in perfectly on Dathomir. I was just like, yo, that is so hot. Like, that's so hot. It's much
symmetry.
Yeah,
that's symmetry.
Yeah, yeah, it's much hotter than when the Chimera was having sex with the fortress. A mysterious ship lands inside Home One's cargo hull. As a night trooper walks out of it, Hera and the rest of the crew all point their blasters towards him. Chopper casually strolls over, and the trooper removes his helmet. Hera says, "Ezra?" And he responds with, "Hi, Hera. I'm home." We've gotten, I think we've seen a lot of praise for this reveal. A lot of folks I'm reading online loved this reveal way more than the reveal with Sabine. Klein, what did you think? And also, how do you think Ezra snuck off the Chimera?
He's Ezra Bridger, guys. He's going to figure out a way. That's what he does. But this whole, this reunion is awesome. Just this whole series, I've been wanting Rebels. I wanted it to be Rebels season 5. Yeah. It was kind of that a little bit, but this specifically this chopper moment, I'm like, this is Rebels. This is what I want. And everyone's got their guns pointed. I wish Hera and him had hugged. I thought they did, but then I was told they did not, and I'm upset about it. But
that was my biggest complaint about this whole thing, was that this is where it felt like something was edited awkwardly, because
or they weren't in the same room.
Well, they definitely weren't in the same room.
Yeah,
that much is clear, because they don't embrace. But the fact that as he's walking towards her, they decide to do a wipe cut to the next scene. It felt like there was more to that scene that they didn't want to necessarily continue with. And to your point, Nate, what you were saying with the other stuff is that they just decided to sever that and maybe tackle it in another scene later. But yeah, it was weird that you have them sort of standing directly across from each other, but they don't embrace. There was such a mother-son sort of quality to their relationship. I was expecting Hera to run to him and give him a hug, and I was like, if that happens, I'm gonna lose it. I'm just gonna be bawling my eyes out, right? And it definitely didn't happen. But it's to your point, Klein, this has been a soft reboot of Rebels, and I can't wait till we see the full band back together in the Ghost. It's just a matter of time.
Bring Freddie Prinze back for a
I thought he was coming back this episode, dude. When they did the Kanan drop, I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen. No,
So actually, I wasn't so upset with the way that they were walking towards each other, because again, Hera seeing Ezra means that Ahsoka and Sabine got to where he was, but why aren't they there? Something happened, and that now part of her family is still trapped in a galaxy completely separated from them, and that's maybe what's on her mind. It's a conflicted reunion, I feel like, because she does know what was lost in order to see him again. I also feel like this is like we keep seeing season 2, and I feel like season 2 refers to Sabine and Ahsoka's story, whereas a Rebels season 5 or a Rebels live action might be focusing more on, you know, the Thrawn threat in our galaxy with the Ghost Crew getting back together to fight that threat.
I'm okay with that.
To me, that makes more sense in trying to tell these two stories that are galaxies apart now, two separate stories, and then go on from that point.
Just don't release them at the same time, please, because there's only so much that we can talk about on the internet. But yeah, it was very picturesque, like with the ghost in the background. I was like, this is awesome looking.
And him in the stormtrooper helm,
perfect.
like we've seen Ezra in various stormtrooper.
That is his specialty.
So many times.
He's adding that to the collection, dude. Like that's going to be another prize on his wall. But I think
also I also think he probably got on that ship pretty quickly because he was in the bay of ships, and I think in the back corner
it was
see like that ship sitting there.
But I think
he probably put on the guard.
You know, we talked about Thrawn being,
unless he did some investigating.
But we talked about Thrawn being so meticulous that he pays attention to the smallest of things. I actually think he didn't. I don't think Ezra escaped, quote unquote. I think he was let go, simply because, you know, why wouldn't Thrawn want to know where Home 1 is? He knows Ezra. He knows he's going straight. He's dumb enough that he's going to go straight back to the New Republic. So of course that was, you know, that's a Thrawn thing to do, is to like say, well, I'm going to let my enemy go to be able to see, you know, where they end up.
Yes, except he's not rebel. They're not rebels anymore. They are the Republic. They're not really hidden. And I don't think Thrawn needs to be like, show me where they are, because everyone knows where they are.
That is true. Yeah, they are traveling.
The fleet. We saw the fleet earlier, and they're all together. That is a noticeable fleet. The galaxy would be like, they're right there. You can see them.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest question, I guess, really is how much did Ezra gather as intel? Because usually when they do these like stormtrooper switch ups, it's like to gather intel or to, you know, kibosh something and whatnot. So did he gather any intel? Obviously, you have to imagine once they made it on the other side and they're closer to Dathomir, he would have probably popped off and just, you know, flown back to wherever he needed to. But I think he would probably want to lay low and lick his wounds. Like he's kind of at a loss. He doesn't have his friends with him, right? He just needs to get back to Hera and the rest of the fam, and then he can reconcile and maybe, you know, come up with a plan, especially if he has info, bring that back to Hera and hopefully, you know, fuel again, kind of speed up what is going to inevitably be, you know, if they do a Rebels or if it's another side story within Ahsoka.
You know, yeah, I mean, it even makes sense because earlier he said, I can't do anything alone.
Yep.
But now he's got the whole fleet and the Republic behind him. That's the perfect opportunity for him to go and bring the fight to Thrawn again with the proper backing. So that's my headcanon that where his story is going, and I hope that comes true.
That would be pretty incredible if we got an Ezra focused, because I think Iman Esfandi was fantastic, but we didn't get enough of him. I want more. Speaking of more, let's get to the final part of this episode. Finally, Sabine and Ahsoka share a moment as night falls upon the Peridian planet's surface. She says, "We're almost packed," and Ahsoka tells her she did well. As Sabine doubts that, Ahsoka reminds her that thanks to her, Ezra got home. She says Ezra is where he needs to be and that they are too. She says it's time to move on. Sabine senses something in the distance, but says it's just shadows in the starlight. Ahsoka takes one more look, smiles, nods, and turns back to join Sabine. We then see Anakin as a Force ghost watching over them as he smiles, and the episode and this season comes to an end. So, Klein, what did you think it means for Ahsoka to have seen, or maybe not seen, maybe sensed Anakin's presence in that final moment?
I think it means that final brick in the wall has fallen down. That she has, for a lot of Ahsoka's life at this point, she has kind of thought that Anakin, well, she finds out that Anakin's Vader and doesn't blame herself, but also is like, how could that turn into this? And so I can never acknowledge even the Anakin side of it, but realizing truly that, and we've had this reinforced to us over and over again in Obi-Wan, here in this series, that Anakin and Vader are two different people. Correct. It's the same person, but they are two different people, and this is her finally accepting it. I also, and I hope to God it means this, I think it means we're getting a lot more hating from Sin.
Yes.
in Star Wars again, which makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Like the redemption arc of him and Ewan, and like I said it on Reckless Rebellion last night when we were reviewing this whole thing, was we're in a prequels renaissance right now, with these actors that are coming back and killing it. And so I hope to God we get more Hayden. I hope it's sooner rather than later. I hope he's a big part of whatever season 2 of this is. Maybe we get him physically there some way through Mortis, because he was going to be the son. Like that.
He was going to be. I think he was going to be the father. Is who that is.
The father. Yes.
And I still think that he is the father.
Really.
And that Balin's the son.
I had it the other way around. Just because
I know
Balin talks about balance so much that I was like, oh, that makes more sense. Anakin's already connected with the son, and then she saw the Morai. She's the daughter. I don't know.
But the father wanted Anakin to replace him as that sense of balance. But you might be right. It could go either way. You know, the fact that we see Anakin at the end here, which I think, you know, Ahsoka's smile and nod is more of an acknowledgement of his spirit that she sensed next to him, but didn't see that. And I think that moment is for us as the fans, like you said, Klein, to kind of acknowledge the sense of conclusion and closure to the story of Ahsoka and her master to the apprentice, and that forgiveness, that hope of seeing what's next, and learning from their failures, right? Like Yoda says in The Last Jedi. I think in a lot of ways, you're right. I think we're going to see more. If there's a season 2, I think this is where we're going to get Force Ghosts Anakin, because I don't believe that what we saw in The World Between Worlds was a Force Ghost Anakin. I think that was, you know, her perception. And I think here is very much, this is our sort of a validation that a Force Ghost Anakin is going to be of a different persona. And you can see his demeanor is entirely different. His wardrobe is entirely different. It's the way we kind of recognize him from the Return of the Jedi. So I don't know. It sort of feels like he has always been with her along these journeys, and he is so happy to see how she has overcome, you know, the sort of turbulence that she has had with the outcome.
I just can't believe we're
I know.
Being such a big Clone Wars fan and seeing like that character get his due there, and that version of the character get his due, and never being able to see Hayden interact with Ahsoka, to get that here, and then to have these moments, like, it means a lot. Like, they know what they're doing. It's really special.
It's Lego GameCube, Lego Star Wars on the GameCube all over again. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And it's funny that you said that you feel like this appearance of the Force Ghost is almost validation that what we saw earlier wasn't, whereas I'm saying it is. Like, I feel like it goes the other way for me, because we're seeing Anakin outside of her memories now. Before it was what she remembered him as, and this is what he is now, and it's his perception of that. But what I think is even cooler is the fact that Sabine is the one who first draws the attention to it. And the fact that almost shows the fact that she is truly a part of this line of master and apprentice now that Anakin brought up earlier, where again Obi-Wan also was the first one to speak. Like, Qui-Gon taught him how to become one with the Force and become a Force ghost well before we saw A New Hope. So the fact that this whole thing about Force Ghosts being so closely tied to the Master and Apprentice leads me to think that yes, we are getting more Hayden Christensen, and I would almost love to see even Ewan McGregor coming back as Obi-Wan Force Ghost to really drop some Master on Apprentice wisdom through the ages type thing, because I think that'd be so cool. Just again, let's give the love to the prequels now, because they deserve it, and all the actors coming back are giving us such feels that I want it to happen every Star Wars show now.
Well, and the fact that, you know, we're talking about it, right? The Master and the Apprentice, and that's the through line of the series. The fact that Ahsoka mentions, like, Anakin was always by my side, and even in death here, it's really poetic that he's still by her side, and it's just really, really beautiful. And I also, you know, I've been saying it all night, but the music during this sequence and into the credits is some of the most beautiful Star Wars music ever. Like, I will say, like, It just really got me welled up after seeing Anakin, and I was feeling it in that moment. And I will also just mention there's a little nod to Across the Stars, speaking of a John Williamsism, as Sabine looks out across the stars. And I thought it was like one of those moments where I was like, okay, Kevin, like, flex on us, sure, whatever. You don't have to.
See you.
But he's just gonna flex on us one more time just to be like, see what I did. But no, so phenomenal. At this point, we kind of get to the end of the episode, and I want to bring up. Usually we bring up like some of our any outstanding. We predict throughout these episodes the entire time, but I like to pretend that we have a prediction segment where we predict what is next in the next episode, because we don't currently have a next episode though. I'd love to know what's next for these characters in a segment I like to call I Want to Know. So, Klein, I want to know, where do you think we'll see these characters next?
I think it's a bunch of different answers. I have a feeling that we're not just going to get Ahsoka Season 2 and it's going to be all this band of characters, boom, right smack dab and everything. I honestly think if you want to pick any character from here, I think the next time we see him is probably... I don't think we see them in Skeleton Crew. I have a feeling that that's going to feel very singular, and then at the very end, maybe even in a post-credit scene, tie in somehow to the whole Mandoverse of it all. I think Mandalorian Season 4, I have a feeling that Hera and even Ezra are going to be somehow involved. I think that we're going to get... My prediction in this series was we were going to get a post-credit scene that was almost like Nick Fury at the end of Iron Man, but with Hera calling Zeb, being like, hey, guess what? Thrawn's back, and Zeb going, oh, I know a guy.
You need a new Mandalorian.
Hearing the Mando theme kick in or whatever. I have a feeling that is what Mando Season 4 is going to be. We're going to get some of these adventures that Mando thinks he's on, doing his kind of save the village things. And then we're going to get the call, and it'll be some general, or it'll be from Zeb, and like, hey,
from
we
Fulcrum,
heard about
man.
something.
Bring
Can you
back
come? Can you come and help us? And because we need to start right now. This is the first kind of step. The Mandoverse movie ball is now rolling. Like, it was slowly being inflated throughout the first 3 seasons of Mando, but now we are officially on the path towards that. And so we got to start moving the pieces into place to get there. So I think Mando Season 4, and then Ahsoka Season 2 is going to happen when when the studios can get their stuff together and give these actors a decent deal. It's going to happen. It has to, because we can't. I don't think we can get to the Mandoverse movie with Sabine and Ahsoka on Peridia.
I agree.
No, there has to. Yeah. There has to be more that needs to happen. Like, I honestly don't see this movie coming out till at least 2030. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, in that's 6,
which is crazy because some people thought it was going to be the first.
I don't think it's going to be the first. I think that they're really going to lean heavy in the series stuff to kind of flush out a lot of the stuff to build it towards. And like we've been saying, like this season has been written with the intention of a season 2, and who knows what else, right? And now that there's all these new characters that we've now been introduced from this series that are at play, like to your point, do they do a Rebels sort of spin-off series that allows them to focus on the Thrawn stuff while...
Or do we get a Rangers of the New Republic reinvented with these
Paul,
Rebels?
If they do,
characters?
I think Paul Sung Lee would be the lead. I think they should definitely
mix them in, bring Hera in, have Ezra there.
I'm down for that.
I think
they could totally do it.
I think that was maybe the plan.
Well, they were that with Kara, with Cara Dune before she got a little sideline
stuff on
Twitter.
Darcy, I want to know. Do you have any ideas as to where we see these characters next?
Well, again, I've kind of dropped my clues for most of the cast, but I was saving my big Thrawn one because I feel like he's the one that, again, I have the most connection to. I love the original trilogy of books, and I love the new reiteration. Both trilogies did both just the Thrawn original series and Thrawn Ascendancy or Alliances, whatever it was. The 3 that came after are incredible. I feel like we're seeing basically the birth of the Sith Eternal. I mean, red is so prevalent in there, and the fact that there are these massive shifts that are hiding somewhere else. I think that the Sith Eternal is what's going to come from Thrawn's bringing the Night Sisters back. I mean, we kind of got the hint of that with the red tape on the stormtrooper armor already, kind of saying they're going that direction. But I feel like he isn't trying to control the galaxy as we know it. I feel like, again, if you read the books, he has a problem with the Chiss ascendancy, where he comes from. And I feel like maybe he was sent here to gather intel on, other powers that might be a threat to the Chiss ascendancy. And I think he's seeing an opportunity with the Empire to find a weapon to overthrow the ascendancy and rebuild it in his image. Because, again, Thrawn's goal has always been big picture, even when we saw him in Rebels and stuff like that. Him working for the Empire was a means to an end that we still didn't know. And I feel like this whole thing is for him to fight back against his people, because he disagrees with so many things that they do. So,
interesting.
I mean, I would love to see that fleshed out either in another book series by Timothy Zahn, or if we get it live action, that'd be even better. All I know is that Thrawn's story isn't over, and we still don't know what his whole reason for working with the Empire is. And I can't wait to find that out.
And how does it get us to where we go, too? That's what I'm so fascinated in, because it's like, this isn't on the end of the saga. Like, we know
where it goes. We know what happens 20 years from now. Yeah.
Right? We have to, whether we like it or not, we have to get to Exegol at the very end of the Rise of Skywalker. How do we get there? And what does Thrawn... Because he can't just happen in a vacuum. That's the thing. They have to make it all make sense, and they have to rope it in somehow, some way, and create some connective tissue. So that's like my biggest question is, how do we go from Thrawn, who Thrawn experts are like, oh, he might not be working for the Empire. He's got his own thing going on. But then how do we get to the First Order? How do we get to a stadium of weird undead Sith people, I guess, chanting Palpatine's name? Like, how do we get there?
I think that's what Filoni's doing.
Somehow Palpatine returned, guys. Sense. Okay, somehow Palpatine returned. Justin, I want to know, how did Palpatine return? No, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on where we see these characters next?
Well, just even to go with that, I think Resurrection, this whole thing, it is laying a groundwork beyond just cloning, but the idea of how that might play into it. We'll see how it all works out. But yeah, I think it's, like I've been saying the entire time, this show is written with the intention of a season 2. I think there's things that are holding it back from having the announcement, and a lot of that has to do with an actor strike, and also I think the passing of Ray Stevenson. So I think they're allowing some time. But if you're at Disney, if you're at Lucasfilm, you've watched all these episodes already, right? And even if they decided to make changes in light of Ray Stevenson's passing, I don't even think they did. I think they said, this is some of his best work. Let us put this out as his final testament to his acting. And it hit really, really well. And I'm sure they're seeing all of this fan reaction, and they know a season 2 is definitely going to pop off when they announce it. So it's just a matter of when they'll announce it. But that said, like the things that you guys are talking about, exploring some of these new characters in other series, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'd like to see, I would love to see some overlap into Skeleton Crew or into Mando season 4. I think that we're far out from a movie. I think the TV shows need to do more with establishing, to your point, Klein, like, how do we get to First Order? And I don't think that the movie is going to actually be that sort of cataclysmic, that this is now the transition to First Order. But I think whatever this big movie moment is meant to be working towards, I think at the end of that, we're going to start to see the next part of the story that will lead us to the First Order. And that's going to really hit, whenever that drops. But the TV shows, the TV series definitely have to fill in the gap, add a lot more, and I'm excited to see how when it'll happen. But I guess Ahsoka season 2 would probably be the likeliest of when they'll come back.
Well, if we do get a season 2, which they have to do, or maybe they do a season called Sabine, right? Or it is the next season of Rebels in live action. I don't care. Just keep them going. I'm honestly okay. I'm honestly okay with holding off on more Mando if it means we get these characters and this new galaxy sooner. I can only go, and I love Grogu, so trust me, that's a big deal. I can only go off of what I previously thought for Baylan, and I think that's he's gonna find a way back. He mentioned in one episode back to the beginning, and I mean the very beginning. I think whatever he's trying to do, I think goes back to the first Jedi, back to Mangold's new movie. I think when I'm telling you, listen, here's the thing. So, like, Darcy and I were at Star Wars Celebration, and we're cheering. We're hyped up. We're having a great time. And they're like, we're announcing 3, new movies. One from James Mangold, showing the earliest, past that we've ever seen. One from Filoni, Dawn of the Jedi. One from Filoni, connecting everything he's done with animation and live action. And one from Charmin Obaid-Chinoy with Daisy Ridley, which, I think we assume will be the future past the sequel trilogy with that movie, right? But I don't think for one moment anyone in that audience thought that these 3 movies could be so closely connected due to when they take place on the timeline. But this ending and this sequence and this stuff with Baylan and the way he's talking, it has me completely convinced that those movies were announced together for a bigger reason, right? And then whatever Baylan is doing is what ties all of it together, which I think is so cool. The idea that Filoni's like, hey, all that stuff from the past and all this stuff, that he's finding a way to, again, take from the nostalgic past and reinterpret it in new ways, with even new characters that we weren't expecting. So I really do think that those movies are going to be kind of a bigger tying point for whatever's going on with Baylan. And then just really quickly, I will just say, I think a guaranteed thing is Sabine and Shin, I think, will form some sort of relationship or bond over the idea that they both had a master abandon them. Of course, Sabine is at a better place with Ahsoka now, so she'll be able to kind of talk to Shin and be like, Shin, listen, like, there is a possible light at the end of the tunnel. But I also love the idea, and this isn't the idea of no disrespect to the character or obviously to Ray Stevenson's legacy, but the concept of Shin starting to reach that light and then seeing her master die, and then that being stripped away from her and she just goes full blown dark side, I think would be freaking awesome. So that's my only other want to know theory that I wanted to throw out.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Dawn of the Jedi, and I realized that's another time we might possibly see Hu Yang. I mean, he mentioned he's been around forever. It is canonized that he showed up at the Jedi Temple thousands of years before the story we know, in a blue box. Very Doctor Who. That's why he's Doctor Hu Yang. But I mean, that'd be cool to see a Hu Yang that we've experienced some of his timeline get sent back in order to help build the Jedi thing, maybe as a result of what Baylan does. Again, it'd be cool to see. I mean, just give me more Hu Yang. I'm grasping now. I want more Hu Yang.
Yeah. I wonder though if it's not directly associated to what Baylan's doing, but indirectly. Like when he talks about getting back to the beginning, then we have the James Mangold story to help tell us about the beginning. Mm-hmm. And like when we talk about like the threats that might come off of the fall off of Filoni's movie, then that's dealt with in the movie that it stars Rey, right? And what's happening post sequel trilogy. Like I'm wondering if there's a way that they're interconnected, because I'm imagining that Filoni is definitely, he's involved in all of this and he's probably helping in certain ways, but he's still allowing, because there's just such a collaborative presence behind Lucasfilm that everyone's really in charge of what they do, and there's other people that are obviously higher ups, but they're giving these filmmakers these opportunities to tell these stories in this sandbox, and they want the best work, and they want these people to do their best work and feel comfortable to do it, right? The whole question is where does Taika Waititi's movie fit in, if it even happened?
You mean
if Taika Waititi's movie?
You mean the Chopper buddy cop with Hu Yang movie where they go on an adventure and Hu Yang tries to stop Chopper from murdering everyone? But bringing it back to this episode and this series, I want to get to our final thoughts and score for this episode and series. We're going to be rating this episode on a scale of 1 to 5 masters, and then for the series, I'd like you to also give your rating on a scale of 1 to 5 apprentices. And so, Klein, I'll have you kick us off.
So my overall thoughts, I think Ahsoka was a success. I just as much as I wasn't a huge fan of the way that it ended, I really enjoyed my time with this series. This is definitely one of the best Disney Plus Star Wars projects that they've done. I don't think it is the best just because Andor exists in a just different stratosphere to what anyone else is doing in this franchise right now. So episode-wise, I'd probably give this a 3. 3 out of 5 masters. the ending really, really soured the whole experience on me. There's just I did not enjoy how hasty it felt. Series wise though, I'm gonna give the whole thing a 4. I loved Ahsoka, and there are moments in here that I'm gonna remember for forever. The middle of this series particularly is really special. Episode 3, 4, 5 is so good. The beginning I thought was good. It felt like more Rebels. We were back in the saddle. It felt great. But for me, the middle of this was like, the middle 3 episodes are 5 out of 5, near perfect Star Wars installments. But yeah, so I'm doing a 3 for the episode and a 4 for the whole thing.
Darcy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really enjoyed this finale. It again sets up a lot of potential, like really cool stories and potentials for these stories to be told in the future of Star Wars. And while I was upset with how they handled, and again, Morgan with her kind of quick rise to power and then a very unceremonious death, and then again the way they handled Shin at the end there without really acknowledging how she ended up where she was, kind of brought down the score for me. But other than that, again, you've brought up the music so many times, Nate, but the music was incredible in this episode. The moments we did get with the fight scenes, both before they got to the fortress and after, I feel like a lot of those action moments were really hitting for me. So I'll be giving the episode 4.5 out of 5 masters. And as the season, I mean, it's not going to be very far off that score either, because like Klein was saying, this is some of the best live action Star Wars we've gotten that really feels like Star Wars, with the lightsabers and the starfights, and everything about this felt so cool. The introduction of these new characters, some new ship designs, and those the starfighters that Shin and the guys are using to chase down Ahsoka are some of the coolest designs. The way they sound and look like old Spitfires, just that really speaks Star Wars to me. Inspiration from these classic machines of death that they're kind of doing a fun fantasy spin on in space. And I love that, the way that we're getting a lot of those callbacks to the war stuff, and then also to the samurai films and everything throughout this series. So again, strong series, easily one of my favorite Star Wars. Andor is still the best, but this one is a close second to me. I'll be giving it 4.5 out of 5 apprentices for the season.
Love it. Justin, how about yourself?
Well, I think as we've been talking, it's quite clear. I thought this finale was great because it masterfully blends a closure to one story and leaving things open on the other side. It kind of concludes one chapter while igniting excitement in, I think, what we can anticipate to be countless adventures in this galaxy, and both galaxies for that matter. The episode featured outstanding choreography, and I love the high stakes situation with zombified stormtroopers. I think that was just so suspenseful and atmospherical. It felt very different while still feeling inherently Star Wars. I don't know if that's corny to say. And I think the fight sequences were executed with such precision. The choreography really calls out the samurai inspirations and qualities of Star Wars. It's crazy. But much like last week's episode, I really like this episode because of its ability to subvert expectations. Rather than attempting to resolve every narrative thread introduced throughout the series, it stays laser focused on the singular story that brought our heroes to Peridia. And that decision kind of adds more emotional depth and weight to Sabine's role and Ahsoka and their journey together, and really highlighting their importance through this series. So I really did enjoy that. And as we were mentioning, this episode, as well as the series, very much features so much Star Wars-isms, and this episode had a lot of them, and it's just such loving callbacks. And again, it's just a way the show lovingly calls back and brings in nostalgia while also giving us something new. I didn't like how Morgan was treated in this last episode. I think she should have been given a little bit of a better outcome. I would have liked to have seen more of her in future stories. But that said, the moments that we did have with her, while they were short-lived, they were great. So, that's the only negative. But I think the finale just delivered on closing a story by leaving the door open for so many more adventures. I'm very excited for what that future looks like. And, I think it has a lot to do with in my mind, watching this, and the entire time I'm watching it, like, oh, there's a season 2. There's definitely a season 2. That is my kind of perception of as I watch this. So for this episode, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 masters, pretty high up there. As for the series, I got to say, this has been the single best addition to Star Wars, the Star Wars universe, apart from Andor. It's different, as you were saying, Klein. It's entirely different, but it's one of the most consistent pieces of Star Wars content, like Andor. And it really comes from Filoni's dedication and passion, for this franchise and storytelling that shines through this series. I think it's remarkable that we as Star Wars fans get to watch this and see this. It's a renaissance of the Clone Wars. It's a renaissance of Rebels. It's so many things wrapped up into one. And what really makes Ahsoka special is just how they were able to bring back all of these additional characters while still staying focused on Ahsoka and her journey. Like we were talking about, that central theme of forgiveness is so beautifully explored through Ahsoka's interaction with her past and present, her relationship with her Padawan, Sabine, and her former master, Anakin. It just adds such emotional depth to give a sense of closure to one side of Ahsoka and really open up what's next for her at the same time with the finale. The cast, we've talked about throughout this watch club at different points. Fantastic. It was great to see these live action adaptations of the characters that we know and love from animation, but we also got some new characters with Shin Hati, played by Ivan Osakno. But as we've been discussing throughout this watch club, for this to be Ray Stevenson's last performance before he passed is unbelievable. It's a shame he isn't here to see how much people loved what he did with the character, but I believe the work that he did here will find a way to be continued in the future when the team at Lucasfilm can figure out how best to proceed. It's so clear, though, that Baylan Skoll was of immense importance to the future of Ahsoka's journey. So I'm saddened, but I'm also excited to know what is next. But with that, another fantastic part of this series is its ability to excel in delivering the quintessential Star Wars fantasy experience. You were talking about it before, Klein. Andor showcases that political thriller aspect of the universe. Ahsoka definitely delves into that fantastical side, that scary, spooky horror side as well, even with this finale. It's introducing us to so many new characters, new threads, and threads that I honestly believe are far more spiritual. Like, there was always a spiritual touch to Filoni's work, and here it really is driven home. That spirituality and magic and witches play a larger part in this Star Wars galaxy. And I think that there's just such a balance of adventure and spiritual exploration throughout this. So I think the series is a triumph. It's a testament to Filoni's dedication. And I think for fans, this is a huge win for Star Wars. It reaffirms so much about the animation and that it really does hold value in the larger Star Wars story. So I got to give this a 5 out of 5. I loved this. This was one of my favorites in relation to Andor. They're both up there, but they're just on different tiers.
They're in different galaxies.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's totally, and I think the lenses of those galaxies. So yeah, long-winded, 5 out of 5. I loved it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, the finale, I think I was blown away up until the last 8 minutes of the episode. I think this episode has some of the best cinematography and choreography that in the entire series. I think a lot of it happened in this episode. Great character moments for Sabine and Ahsoka in this one, and Lars, just some incredible mic drop moments with Thrawn. Morgan was the best that we've seen her all season, and I think the excitement of seeing something new, like troopers coming back to life, I think was a lot of fun. But yeah, I struggle with the last few sections of the episode that just, to me, it just didn't give me what I wanted from Baylan and Shin. Okay, if we're gonna boil it down to just being greedy Star Wars people, I'll admit it. I'm a greedy Star Wars person. I just wanted more from those characters. However I can justify it, I will. But I will say, I think we don't fully know the plans for the next part of this story, which can be frustrating, but I trust in the Force that is Dave Filoni to eventually find a way to continue these characters in a satisfying way. I think this show felt, this show felt more like a Rebels series than a wholly focused episode, sort of show of Ahsoka. But I think this episode, like you said, Justin, sort of said, okay, we're gonna now bring it right back to the title character of Ahsoka, and I think they landed, for the most part, they landed the ship with that final sequence, and of course more Hayden Christensen. How can you complain? Even if he's just standing there looking pretty, he's amazing. He's amazing.
Glowing.
He's so
handsome.
handsome. He's glowing. He literally was glowing. And I think, with the whole concept of master and apprentice, the more I think about those final moments, the more I'm okay with where we're leaving those characters. So I would have loved to know to learn just a little bit more from one of the best characters and probably one of the best performers on the show. But I will practice patience, like he says, and I'm going to give this finale a 4 out of 5. Masters. For the series, you guys already said a lot that I'm going to chime in with, of course. Like, it doesn't have to compete with Andor. You know what I mean? Like, if we're going to be making those lists of like best Star Wars thing, it's Nintendo Switch and PS5.
products.
Like, we're not putting them
Exactly.
on the same plane here.
Different products,
yes,
yeah.
they're different products. So I think the thing that I love about this, and Filoni just shows he's flexing the ability to do the fantasy side of Star Wars in an elevated way that hits just as hard as the moments within the films. It's not perfect, this series, I think, but it does so much right that there are so many moments that will live in Star Wars infamy. Before watching the finale, I actually turned on the first episode just to watch the moment with Balin in the hallway. I was just like, yo, like, it's so good. It hits so hard. Episodes 4 and 5, like you said, Klein, favorite episodes of the season. They're perfect. The pacing, the battles, the character growth for Ahsoka and her experiences highlighted in her memories are moments that I'm never going to forget. The smoke being there, and you just see little young snips, and you just see one clone trooper in live action running towards the screen. I'm just like, it's ingrained in my brain, and her memories are now mine, and I love it. So I adored so much of the show, the production design, the cinematography, the fight choreography, as we haven't been able to stop talking about, and the music. Come on, Kevin Kiner is right up there with Ludwig. He's right up there with Nicholas Britell as some of the best music on any Disney Plus series, not just Star Wars. Performances, Rosario Dawson. Come on. Like, I know some people kind of are going back and forth. I think that what worked so well about her performance is that she started closed off. You talked about those walls, Klein. She started that way, and then we really got that snips in the back end of this series, and I think Rosario did a great job emphasizing that. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I think there were moments where she felt really Hera when she was trying to defend her family, when she's talking about, the passion and the love that she has for her found family. That's when she was most Hera. We'll see how she maybe Hera's out in the future. Natasha Leo Bordizzo, I think, for me, looked like Sabine incredibly. I go back and forth on her throughout the series. David Tennant, as we talked about, just Hu Yang is just incredible. Iman Esfandi looked and sounded so much like Ezra. Hayden Christensen, like Klein said, just keep giving us Hayden. Give us a Force Ghost series of just Hayden, just on the screen the entire time, just talking and walking around and doing stuff and doing lightsaber battles. I just thought he was so good. I think this is some of my favorite moments of him as the character of Anakin. And yeah, Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn is incredible. But I think Ray Stevenson, I think is just, he's one of the best Star Wars villains that we've gotten in a really long time. And he's going to be remembered for what he gave us in the show and his performance. So yeah, so many more hits than misses. So I'm with you, Justin. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 apprentices. Fantastic job, Dave Filoni. Now just give us more Star Wars. But that is it for this Watch Club for Star Wars Ahsoka Part 8. And that's it for this Watch Club in general. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or your predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, if you want to tell us, what did you think of this ending? Do you want to tell us maybe what you thought of the series overall? Well, let me just turn into a Force ghost and smile at Justin so he can feel my presence and let you know how you can reach us.
They can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com, or they can reach out to us on the app formerly known as Twitter at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
And if you want to join in to our Discord and tell us maybe where you think these characters are going next, we do have a channel open up for Ahsoka that we're going to keep open for the next little bit until people maybe stop talking about it. But how could you ever stop talking about this show? So definitely, if you want to join our Discord, you can do so through the link in our description. Klein, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a bit of a longer episode than we normally do for these watch clubs, but it's the finale, and we've got Klein here. So, Klein, I want to know, for all our lovely listeners who aren't already following you, how can they keep up with you?
You can find me everywhere, Twitter, Instagram, at the Klein Felt. That's TheKleinFelt. And as I said off the top, thedirect.com. I'm writing over there, podcasting every single day. Spider-Man 2 review coming out Monday, October 16th. That's my big thing right now. Look for that. Very excited to share that with the world. And yeah, just an interview about One Piece live action series a couple weeks ago. Coverage from that still coming out. So yeah, the Klein Felt. That's where you can find me. Everything I'm doing. Podcasts, Reckless Rebellion, Controller Club. Come say hello. We have fun as well.
Klein, everything you just mentioned just ticked all the boxes for everyone sitting here on this podcast right now. You mentioned One Piece, Darcy sits up.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You mentioned Spider-Man, Justin sits up. And so, yeah, super stoked
this
to
is
see.
my first exposure for One Piece, and I'm in. I've
love it.
I've started the anime. I am in. I am ready to go. I'm going to be king of the pirates.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Love it.
Amazing. Fantastic. Well, we'll be sure to have all the links for how you can continue to keep up with Klein's work in our description as well. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other episodes covering the latest and greatest. Some of the summer releases out now, including our recent spoiler-free reviews for The Creator, Expendables 4, I Am Groot Season 2, Star Wars Ahsoka Episodes 1 and 2, Only Murders in the Building Season 3, which just had its finale, by the way. It was really good. Go watch it. And of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Plus, we have a ton of great interviews that you can go back and watch with all sorts of Star Wars folks, including the director of this very episode, Rick Famuyiwa, as well as Hayden Christensen himself, Anakin Skywalker. Justin had a chance to talk to him and to talk to him about being a father in Star Wars, which, kind of works along with some of the themes of Ahsoka. And I think you even do talk to him about Ahsoka in that interview.
Yeah, we talk
right?
about the watching animated in relation to understanding where Anakin is as Vader. So just
super dope.
It's cool that he actually did that. He watched all that.
Yeah. Of course. But yeah, you can check those out, either through your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. It's going to be a lot to talk about as we start to, the hot geek summer has fully embraced the cozy geek fall. We've got some spooky reviews, some spooky Canadian-centric review coming up. I'll hint at that. And we also have yet another watch club, which we're going to be talking about Loki season 2. Klein, are you on the Loki train yet? Have you dived into season 2 yet?
I have. I've just like you guys. I saw all 4 episodes, and y'all are in for a treat.
Oh yeah,
it is. Yeah. It's an experience. It can feel like drinking from a fire hose at times, but it is an experience.
I love that. Yes, we'll all be drinking from the fire hose for sure. We're going to be covering that series because we have seen, as Klein mentioned, all 4 episodes. We aren't going to do our traditional watch club for that. We are going to cover sort of as a 4-episode recap once episode 4 drops on Disney+. Then we'll be moving to episode 5 and episode 6 after their episodes release. Other than that, let's just... Sorry, Justin's trying to give me show notes here. Other than that, let's wrap up. Klein, Darcy, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this watch club. And as we say, for possibly the final time, maybe there'll be season 2. But let's go ahead and say it here. We are no Jedi.